Aaron Rios has had a remarkable 30-year career at Walmart and is currently Director of Public Affairs Strategic Initiatives across the United States. He oversees business initiatives that support the enterprise with focus on advocating for consumers. He was in the leadership team for Walmart's first multi-level store, became a store manager at age 23, ran an early supercenter at age 26. I can't imagine doing that. As a market manager, Aaron was responsible for 12 stores in the Inland Empire and high desert regions with annual sales of over $800 million. His other posts in the company have been important ones, including overseeing the Western United States. That's quite a job. Playing a vital role in managing state and local government relations, working closely with elected officials. Aaron is a Bentonville, Arkansas headquarters associate. He visits Bentonville as part of the executive team. He does reside in Redlands with his wife and 3 children. Aaron's extensive experience and dedication to Walmart's mission have made him an invaluable asset to the company. His contributions have helped improve and support the company's public image and strengthen its relationships with its stakeholders. So it's with great privilege that we present our speaker for tonight, Aaron Rios.
All right, we'll get into this. Jim, thank you very much, and to the university for allowing me the opportunity to come and speak. As was mentioned, I do live here in Redlands, so I didn't have to travel very far despite being a Arkansas-based associate, and love the community and the opportunity to be able to come speak here. My connection with U of R actually started from a former professor of yours that was a neighbor of mine, and we both lived in Loma Linda. And he asked me to come speak to one of his classes. I got the opportunity to meet Jim and several of his colleagues 2 years ago at a speech I was giving at Arizona State, and I'm glad to be able to follow that up. So I was concerned as he was reading my bio a little bit. I thought maybe it was an obituary for my career as he was getting toward the end of it, but I think I'll get through it and we'll be okay. For the students in the room, I know or assume that you're here because you were told you'll get an A on your final as long as you stay through the very last word that I say up here. And for the faculty, you lose tenure if you leave early, right? So it'll be the crowd that's just as full at the end as it is at the beginning. So it's important as I go through maybe. All right. So I'm going to take you through an evolution of kind of old, current, some new stuff as it relates to GIS. I am not a GIS expert. I am very much a generalist in a lot of things that we do as a company. And so I can speak to the practical applications, and that's what I'm going to try to do today. And we'll try to answer as many of your questions as possible at the end. I think one of the most important things here is this first spot here, how we view ourselves as a company. We are people-led, technology-powered omni-channel retailer. What does that mean? We embrace technology, but at the core of what we do will always be people. And we will deliver our technology usage in a way that respects our associates and makes sure that they are involved and have a voice in how we apply it. You know, our technology, as you'll see as we go through some of these practical applications, has been far-reaching. Probably over the last 20, 25 years, the largest noise has been around e-commerce. E-commerce now in the year we just finished was 100 billion of the 650 billion plus that the company did in sales. So we continue to drive technology there. But overall, it's about enhancing the shopping experience for consumers. So one of the things that we've seen, particularly with inflation over the last few years, is that consumers who make over $100,000 who maybe weren't traditionally Walmart consumers are Walmart consumers. And they're realizing and understanding what our role is in trying to help people save money and live better overall. As you look at the importance of location data and analytics overall, it's about, for us, the customer experience. Customer habits continue to change. If you think about how you shop today compared to how you shopped in December of 2019 before the pandemic, right? I mean, that is not a long period of time, but we've all shifted. And how fast people are shifting is even more so the case. And what we found with the data is it shows us the behaviors of people, what are the things that are influencing their decisions. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we're trying to capture as much of that consumer's dollar and be able to serve them in a way that benefits their household. So I'm going to go through a number of practical applications on GIS and our operations overall. One of the easiest ones to talk about, and for anybody who's either interacted with Esri or their products or works for them, these first few slides are going to tie into that. But our Emergency Operations Center really took forefront 2004 Hurricane Katrina, our reaction and being able to get goods down there when the federal government and FEMA and even the state agencies were just struggling. That's really what put us on the map in this space. And it's continued to be an evolutionary role that we utilize. I threw this one quote in here. My daughter's a freshman at USC, so please don't take it personal. I know that the U of R has a partnership with USC too. But I found this online, and this is a professor who said, well, you may not necessarily think of Walmart as a GIS company. Anytime the multi-hundred-billion-dollar company wants to expand into a new area, it overlays spatial information with its other market research to determine optimal locations for placing a store or buying land. And you're going to see that in great depth here in a few slides. But first to the Esri piece, and then I'm going to move on to some other technology that we utilize. So this is our utilization of it through our Emergency Operations Center to evaluate where we have stores that are at risk for storms or weather situations. So you can see here we've got 209 stores in this screenshot that are at risk of thunderstorms, 13 that have winter storm risk, 13 that are in flood watch, and one that's in a flood warning. These dashboards also allow us to see real time how many stores are closed, where are those impact areas, and allows us to make some other decisions I'll get into in a moment. So another example, again, utilizing Esri. This is in the Northwest, using the Winter Storm Severity Index to try to anticipate what was the impact going to be on our stores in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and then looking at the probabilities within that and where that severity would be, and then drilling down within the counties and within the census tracts, depending on how much we need to drill in to say, these are the areas where it's going to be worse. These are the areas where it's going to be better as we plan out not only what consumer needs are going to be before the storm or after the storm, but our associate needs, our staffing abilities, what kind of merchandise we need to be able to get there, and what our timing is to be able to get it there. If you wanted us to move food, for example, into the Sacramento market on Monday from our distribution center that happens to be in Sparks, Nevada, and is connected by the Interstate 80, it wasn't happening. So we had to divert product from other distribution centers to be able to get it into that Sacramento market or the Northern California market. And so this technology helps us be able to look at that and be able to say, okay, where do we need to pull? What strains is that going to be in the system? What are additional staffing needs maybe going to be in a different area that we didn't anticipate? Again, communicating severe weather. This happens to be in Southeast Texas and Louisiana. And looking at, in this scenario, we had 188 facilities that were potentially at risk that we are monitoring. This one is actually from August of last year. So this is Hurricane Idalia that came to shore in Florida near the Panhandle and then worked its way across into the Atlantic. And so in this scenario, what I particularly like is that you see all these blue dots in this storm. Every one of those is a Walmart store. So we can take the technology in addition to seeing, hey, we have 10 or 30 or 150 stores that are in these storm paths or at risk. In this scenario over here, like it made landfall at 11 o'clock in the morning, worked its way across, but we're able to see we're going to have issues into Georgia, North and South Carolina with heavy rain and where those impacts are going to be. And then this is about our disaster response. What kind of damages are stores going to take? What kind of needs are consumers going to have after the storm to be able to recover their homes, food, or anything like that, based on what happens. So to further on the discovery piece, or excuse me, the disaster response, it also allows us to look at what are the needs. So we know if there's a fire, these are the needs before and after. If there's a hurricane, these are the most immediate needs before and after. If there's going to be a tornado, this is what the needs are going to be afterward. And so it allows us to move that merchandise ahead of time to start getting ready or get prepared. And it allows us to make sure that we aren't overloading the stores with product they don't need, but we are getting in the product they do need. So this is distribution of some of the products. This is an example, again, from another hurricane. This was in Louisiana, and you can see the pictures on the bottom. This is the damage that occurred to our stores. What was interesting here is we knew these hurricanes were coming, and so we actually placed spotters ahead of time to be able to be prepared to go into the storm zone immediately after the storms, to take these pictures, identify what our needs were to get our stores repaired and opened as quick as possible. We also pre-spotted generators for stores to be able to get back online, and looked at what our other needs would be. Other needs would be things like, in this scenario, after the storm passed, we had a number of stores that had lost power, and there was no pharmacy operations in a larger region within Louisiana. So we took this trailer, we call it Big Blue. It's a mobile pharmacy. It's an 18-wheeler trailer that expands on the side and literally becomes a mobile pharmacy. We set it up in one of our parking lots. We communicate to all the stores within that region and let them know we have this pharmacy available so that you can have the life-saving prescriptions that you may need until we get our stores back open, or maybe the pharmacy that you normally use is open back up for use. And this is water distribution, which almost every disaster seems to be water is the first thing that's needed. And this is about us getting the trucks there. There's a famous picture from Hurricane Katrina, and it's one of the highways, and there's 25 Walmart trailers all lined up waiting to get into New Orleans to provide relief. Many of those trailers had water on them because that was the most basic life-sustaining need that they needed following the storm. So here's one that's coming next month. If we got any of you that are interested in the eclipse, this is the eclipse path. And so this is us using Esri's technology to understand from a merchandising perspective, what are we going to need that consumers or that are interested in the eclipse are going to come into that area. We're going to see increases throughout that belt of people. And so we need to think through food. We need to think through, are they camping? Are they in a trailer? Are they in hotels? Do they need special glasses to be able to look? All of those things are factors that our merchandising department looks at. Well, the first thing we need to understand is what stores are impacted. So every one of those dots that you see there is a store along the expected beltway that's going to be impacted from the eclipse next month. All right, so let's take a look at real estate. This is California. The dots that you see that have red are Walmart Supercenters. So this is almost 15 years old. Looking at this map, not too many red dots. Lots of blue dots. Those are general merchandise stores. So didn't have fresh groceries that's so prevalent in our fleet today. And we are looking at siting a new store. So the way that we use the technology is at first we go in and say, okay, well, where are we looking at placing the store? In this case, it was kind of in this hole. And what are the stores that we have around it? Because we want to serve new customers, but we also want to be careful not to negatively impact our existing stores in those operations. So then we draw what we call a trade territory. So that's what this red line is. And we said, this is a 1 mile ring, 3 mile ring, 5 mile ring. We said, this is where we think we're going to pull customers from. Then it's important to look at your competitors. What kind of competition do you have? In this case, Albertsons, Target, Food for Less, there's a Ralph's in there. And so understanding who it is you're competing with to understand what kind of market share is there, and are you going to be able to survive based on who those competitors are that you're going to be going up against. So then we looked at what's there. There was a number of retailers. Next to the store we were going to place, there's a movie theater. So that's regular people that are coming to watch the movie, clothing retailer. What's important on this slide as well, and you'll understand in a minute, is the densities. So the nice thing about all the GIS technology is it feeds us the densities. It tells us here's your education levels and here's what your households look like and all of that. But you can also see it. And so some of this, in this particular community, there is an affluent area that was multifamily housing, but the larger portion, about 75% of the area around this store, was dense apartments. And that affects what our merchandise looks like, how we're going to serve the customer, how they get to and fro, and you'll see that in a second. So then we look at how it is that our neighboring store that's closest to it, the impact's going to be. So you can see that store's here. This is the trade territory for the store we were looking at. So we felt like the impact wasn't going to be significant. The color schemes that you see here is where we think more customers are coming from or not coming from. So the darker colors is where we think we're going to get more customers. You'll notice all this red, real dense right around there. Why is it that we made that assumption? Because it's a bunch of dense housing from apartments, right? And those folks probably aren't going to be driving to our store. They're going to walk because they're so close. Because if we look at that prior slide, the density is right on top of where our store was going to be, where the existing shopping center was. And we also looked at the trends for the other center. So then what does that affect? It affects what you put in the box. What kind of merchandise? All right. So if we're looking at putting the store in West LA, for example, near UCLA, how much USC merchandise is going to sell there? Right. So if we're looking at putting the store in San Francisco, how much Dodgers merchandise is going to sell there? Right. So that's the most simplistic form, but it's also looking at weather trends. All right. So the store happens to be in Southern California. It's got warmer climate. You're going to sell shorts and swimsuits longer. You're not going to need cold weather. You look at education levels. It may determine how big your stationery department is, how many books you carry within that store, how many houses have yards. That's going to determine if you have a garden center, need a garden center, what are the products that they have within it. For this particular store, one of the things we had to look at is what was the average basket size? Because the density was so much apartments, and because people weren't driving, they were using mass transit. Do you know what the hottest new car was in the neighborhood after we opened? Anybody? A Walmart shopping cart. So at this particular facility, we actually had to put in locking shopping carts where the wheels would lock when they got to the perimeter of the property. Because initially when we opened, what we found was they were trading in their old Food for Less cart or their other competitor cart, and they were upgrading to the new Walmart cart, and they would just walk it home. They might have kids in it. They might just have their groceries. They took it right up to their apartment. They took it in the apartment like it was theirs. And then the next day or whenever they're going back to the store, they would take it back. They're also buying smaller baskets versus the affluent neighborhood. They were buying big screen TVs and other furniture and things because they had more space to be able to accommodate those things. So this is what we call our store of the community profile. It determines, based on using the GIS technology and what the demographics look like around us, what's going to sell in the box, what makes sense to have in that particular area. That goes on to impact our marketing plan. So you can see here, we've got signage of different types. And so we'll determine, here's what our marketing plan is as a company for the month, by week. Mother's Day is Mother's Day everywhere, all right? But we may have other holidays based on the demographics that will be more important to one or the other. So using that baseline GIS technology and all those demographics, we then feed that into our marketing to be able to say, not only what are the products you're going to carry, but what are the products you're going to advertise. So for example, and ads have changed a lot. So remember, I'm trying to take you back in time, current and future. This ad of these kids jumping off a boat, how well do you think it would do if we mailed that to people's homes, which is how ads were delivered then, in that neighborhood that 75% of it was apartments and 25% was affluent, and there was no lake anywhere to be around? It wouldn't do well. And so our marketing teams would say, look, this is our ad that's going to go out for Mother's Day, but the ad is going to look different by market based on the demographics and the underlying data that we have that makes that up. It also impacts what are the items that we put on the ad to be able to sell. So in Southern California, we may have something different than what we're advertising in Montana or Arkansas. On the front page is the main item that we're selling. So taking this a little bit further, looking again at, this is a California analysis. So Asian Americans, fastest growing population. If you're looking at getting into business, and I encourage you to find one that's going to serve the Asian population. 23.1 million as of the last census. And, it's greater than Denmark and the Netherlands from a country perspective. The last census, we had 7.4% growth. Asian Americans grew at 36%. Here's what their projected growth is through 2060. And you can see that is ramping up with 60-year growth at 288%. So for us as a company, looking at and understanding where are Asian populations growing? How do we serve them? What are the product mixes they look for? How are you relevant to the things that make sense for them? They're projected in 2055 to pass a Hispanic population from a size perspective. So at that point, they're projected to be 36% of the population, Hispanics or Latinos at 34%. And you can see from 1965 going to 2065 how the white and Caucasian population is dropping. This is again across the entire country. The buying power of the Asian population is tremendous. If they were their own country, be 16th in the world, and would equal Mexico's gross domestic product. So this heat map shows you where the density is for Asian population. So you can see the Bay Area is pretty dense. Actual overall numbers, because the LA piece is so broad, it's biggest in LA, even though it's not densest. I'd also call out Dallas and Houston. Kind of remember those colors, kind of a light red and more to the pink, because I'm going to come back to that in a minute as well. So we started looking at Asian population, what it looked like in Southern California, how we needed to serve it. And then we also wanted to understand, well, what did our supplier base look like that we're buying goods from in Southern California? And how does that tie in? Because our suppliers have employees, and many of those employees are also Asian. And so looking at where those connections were and how we could drive that. Then we overlaid our stores. I know this one's a little bit harder to see, but the color dots within it are the stores that kind of lay in. And this is as of 2013. So we're looking at about 10-year-old data. And then we looked at, let's see what's happened for the Asian population growth. So I gave you the overall view in the reds, but this is more specific into kind of Orange County, LA County. So Rolling Heights, you can see it's kind of light green. We've got some heavier dark green density here. This is 1990. That's what it looks like in 2014. That's 1990. That's 2014. So as we looked at it, we said, well, how are we doing on serving the population? So the blue flags are Walmart stores. And then we started looking at where are the growth markets and where are the future growth markets. So I'm going to focus right here on this Rolling Heights and this expansion here and this Orange County piece, particularly as you look at the number of blue flags. I'm going to switch them, make them circles in a little bit, but you'll see how we made some changes in trying to be able to serve the community, and the Asian population was a big piece of what we were looking at. Then we looked at our competitors. Particularly at this time, Amazon wasn't who they were yet. Target was our largest competitor. Target actually had more stores in California than they had in Minnesota, where they're headquartered. And they were well positioned to serve the population growth for this demographic in a way that we weren't. So again, this Rolling Heights piece, right? So this is a 2,000 population for Asians in Southern California. And then this is what it looked like in 2021. That's 2000. That's 2021. Right? That's that same area we were just looking at with blue flags for Walmart, all the Target tags, Asian population growth, 52% during that time period in the region. Total population growth was 14. So again, if you're somebody trying to think of, gosh, what business should I get into or who should I serve? Or if you're Walmart saying, how are you going to grow sales? Or where are you going to put new stores? What kind of decisions you make? What should your merchandise mix look like? Does the Chinese New Year matter? Yes, it matters. You have to be relevant to your customers. And if your customer base is changing, you have to have accurate technology to make those decisions. So these are the changes we made. Right. So this region in here is kind of where we were looking at on the map here in the parts of Orange County. And you'll also notice there's a whole lot more blue circles with red dots on them. Those are super centers. So that's our best product to be able to offer consumers for their shopping experiences. And then you can see overall, again, this is that 2021 map, how much deeper red Southern California and California is. But look over here at Houston, look at Dallas, look at those growth numbers for Austin, right? And Texas has gotten a lot of credit for their growth after the pandemic. This is before the pandemic, right? I mean, the numbers, even though they came out in 2021, they are looking back 10 years from a census perspective. So maybe a little hard to see. There's a split down the middle. These are Walmart stores in the Dallas metro. These are Walmart stores in the Houston metro. So I gave you a deeper dive into what Southern California looked like in our analysis of the Asian population and trying to understand how we could serve them. Texas is Walmart country. We've got more than 600 stores in Texas, but we're well positioned to continue to be able to not only serve Asians that are in those markets, but all the population growth that's coming to those markets since then. We also use it in our logistics, and we tie it in with other tracking technology. So this is just a little bit about that. We've got trackers on all of our trailers. So if you know anybody that's thinking about stealing a Walmart truck, it's probably a bad idea. This is how we can track those trucks all over the country so that we know exactly where those assets are, how they're being utilized, what's happening with them. That also ties into, you know, all this density in trucks over here. You can see it kind of on some of these corridors where it's moving. But as we look at the GIS population demographics where we have stores, it helps us understand where do we need to put distribution centers. This is just fulfillment centers for online orders. This isn't our distribution center base. Where are those orders coming from based on the demographics? Where do we need to have drivers? Where do we need trucks and assets to be able to support the communities that have that product or that need? Shifting to a couple of other different products. So Policy Map is one we've just started using. It's got a variety of demographic and economic housing, education information within it. But we had an interesting use case that came up that I thought was different to share with you. So this product is called Caroline's Carts, and these carts are for families that have disabled family members. And they can be very difficult to maneuver while you're shopping. So these carts were designed so you can actually sit the family member in, you can strap them in, they're safe, and then it's got a shopping cart attached to it, and you can have a pleasant shopping experience. So we made the decision we were going to add these into our fleet, but we wanted to add them to where they would be most useful first. So they came and said, hey, do we have a resource or a tool that can help us do this? So in this case, we looked at using Policy Map, people under 18 with disabilities, where we had stores within the county. And ultimately we said, look, if you're going to start, this is the list in the pecking order of where you should send these carts to make sure that we are serving people who need them the most in the most immediate way. And eventually we'll get out to the entire fleet, but let's get them where they're needed most to start with. This one's a different one. And the team I'm on, we utilize this quite a bit. And we look at three pieces within this. So one is it has demographic information so that we can look at identifying the people who are best to deliver the message, whatever that message may be. We have heat maps so that we can see either within a census tract or a county or within a state, this is where it makes sense based on the group that we're trying to bifurcate. And then we can also look at media. So, you know, you're all using your phones, you're consuming media a lot of different ways. And for some of you, you woke up the other day and said, my life's coming to an end because Meta is broken, right? And until it was fixed, then your day got better. And we can use this to say, hey, this is a demographic we want to talk to in this particular area or region, and they like to consume their media through radio. And you might say, radio? Well, if you're in North Dakota or South Dakota or Montana, radio, Pandora, they're a big part of how you consume your media. If you're in Los Angeles, probably not, right? And so we can take these cross sections of who are the people we're trying to target, where is it that they're at, how are they consuming it, and then ultimately decide what are we delivering. So in this example that I'm sharing, we identified that this market did not understand our health and wellness offerings. We had them. We had the stores, we had pharmacies, we had vision centers, we had products available for them to use. And as we started talking to them, literally, we'd talk to them on the sidewalk and say, oh, have you ever thought of using our vision, services? Vision center, you have a vision center? You just walked past it 20 feet ago. Like literally, it's right next to the entrance as you walked out. And so we said, well, let's dive into this and see what we can figure out. So we looked at who are traditional Walmart shoppers. Where is it that our stores were in this particular, because we were doing a test. We picked a control market and then a market we were going to focus on. And we put together an effort that was around 90 days. This was about a 6-month effort, though, doing all of the analysis on the front side to make sure we were targeting the right folks. And the results were great. We took the campaign. We had 18 million impressions. But most importantly, that last line at the beginning, because we asked people before we did this how they felt, and then we asked them again afterward how they felt. And we moved their awareness of Walmart as being a good healthcare provider in this test market from 49% to 65% through this targeted effort that all started with the underlying technologies from GIS targeting and looking at the information that was available for the market. So talk through some challenges and opportunities. Site selection, we aren't building as many Walmart stores as we used to. So there was a time in the 2015, 2013, we were building 350 stores a year. We just announced last month that in the next 5 years, we're going to build 150 stores. So in the next 5 years, we're going to build what we used to build in 4 months. Why? Because the consumers changed. How many of you go to the store to get your stuff? Or are you ordering online that's delivered to your house, or maybe you're going and picking it up? So you don't necessarily need the box, but you still need to be able, when I say the box, I mean the retail box, but you still need the warehouse box to get the product to the consumer who's utilizing it. So we're having to use that technology even more to identify where, if we're only going to build 150 stores, where is the best place to deploy that capital in a way that's going to benefit customers the most and help the business the most. Analyzing. So I just talked about that campaign for health and wellness. Like we did more work on the front side, analyzing, preparing, evaluating to get the results that we needed on the back side. So people who have these skill sets, have these degrees, have this technology is a big challenge for us and a big piece that we continue to look for. This is another example. So again, consumers want things different ways. We have been testing drone delivery. We've actually done more drone deliveries than any other retailer. In the Dallas market, we expanded our drone delivery program. But part of what we needed to look at was where would the drone delivery work? We have a whole bunch of different partners that we work with in the drone delivery space. So some of them, how far is it to the household from where you're launching those drones? How heavy of a package is it you can carry? What are the most frequent packages that people are ordering? So an example would be pharmacy products, because they tend to be lighter, work really well. But if you get into a windy area, drones are a problem. And so we're having to look at all that technology to decide. Ultimately, we settled Dallas is going to be our big test market. We announced that a few months ago and continue to take different programs we've been testing and expanding that. The technology helps us look at an improved market strategy. So when you think about how you shop today, some of you order online, some of you may go pick it up at the store, some of you may want it delivered, some of you actually want to go in the store. One of the new products that we've been talking about is we'll actually deliver it to your house and put it in your refrigerator. But you can only do that in the right market. That market that I was showing earlier that had 3/4 of it was apartments. They may want to have somebody deliver it into their apartment, but the reality of their financial situation is they probably can't afford that. And so this is where that GIS technology and looking at the demographics and understanding where can you test it? Where does it make sense? What's the right market to be able to do that? Again, to meet customers where they want to be met. And that's different. Like today I had a delivery at my house. Uh, the other day I went and picked stuff up. Sometimes I want to get out of the house and I'll actually go to the store. And many of you are the exact same way. And so that's where being, for us, an omni-channel retailer and using this technology to figure out the best way to serve each market makes sense. Other opportunities, transportation, looking at fulfillment centers, how do we enhance those to be able to get the products to where they need to go, minimizing the mileage that's driven. Last mile is the most important here. So that's from the store to your door or from you getting from your door to our store. And so looking at ways that we can minimize that friction to get it to you the easiest way. In fulfillment is something we talk about within our marketplace vendors. So it's not Walmart product, maybe somebody that's selling product on the Walmart platform and being able to help them get their product to consumers. So that's another piece that ties in with this. And then the recruitment of analysts and people who have this technology. So we've done a number of things in this space. One is I'm here talking to you. This is a big part of Walmart. It's not only hopefully opening your eyes that, hey, there is practical application in retail, but we need you. And we need people that that are interested in this space to come work for the company so we can be on the cutting edge. Some of the things we've done, we have campuses in the Bay Area. We have them in the Northeast, but we're doing a multi-year, multi-billion-dollar new build of our home office campus in Northwest Arkansas. If you're into cycling, Redlands is a big cycling community. One of the big cycling meccas now in the United States is Northwest Arkansas. And that's some of the efforts that Walmart and the leaders in the Northwest Arkansas region working together and figuring out how do we make this a place that people want to come live and people want to come work? Because it's not just about having the degree in the technology. You also have to have the other things in your life and trying to figure out that balance. We're also starting to offer certificates for our associates. We're paying for their degrees if they'll go get a degree in this space so that we have the labor and the associates that are needed to be able to continue to be on the cutting edge of this technology. So with that, let me stop and see what questions you may have.
Thank you, Aaron, for such an interactive presentation. My question is, when we teach analytics in class, we always tell students that data could be a double-edged sword. Sometimes it would be rather a curse when you get the data paralysis, right? So
analysis paralysis is a real problem.
Exactly.
It is a real problem.
So is there a time, or can you share a circumstance where too much data that could be a curse, or there could be cases like your business instinct goes against what the data shows?
Yeah, great question. So you will experience analysis paralysis in business. It just happens. And usually there is one or a few people who are on an initiative that are driven to get to the end that will help push through that. We had a circumstance recently. I was talking about some of this targeting stuff. We were looking at doing a special project. We were trying to determine where we should do it, who we should do it with. And it took 2 months. For 2 months, there was this ongoing back and forth debate about where it should be. And I was kind of helping manage the project, but wasn't in charge of the project. And finally I said, here's the list. We've analyzed this to death. We're having a call next week and we have to make a decision. And we got on the call and they didn't want to make a decision. And I just kept pushing. We got to make a decision. And ultimately we did. You have to feel comfortable, like as a 30-year associate in that situation and doing what I've done for the time I had enough credibility to be able to say that. But I would say, particularly for the students in the room who are thinking about, hey, when you get in that situation, You either have to identify the right people that are going to be your mentors that can help show you how to manage through those situations, or you have to present yourself in a way that you have credibility in what you're expressing and trying to move something, and that you're not trying to be the bull in the china shop and just get your way or get what it is that you want. And that's not always easy. Sometimes it can be very frustrating. That get to your
Thank you for sharing that for the students' perspective. If I could ask another question.
Sure.
So what do you see as the biggest challenge coming from Target and Amazon in the next 5-10 years?
For Walmart or for retail?
For Walmart.
You know, technology is changing so fast right now. I think as a company, we're well positioned. And what you have is, I'm going to use Amazon, really good online, did not have the brick and mortar presence. Walmart, huge brick and mortar presence. We didn't have the online chops. And the goal is to get to here, which is to be the omni-channel retailer, and making the decisions to get to there. So for Amazon, they bought Whole Foods. That wasn't as easy as they thought it was going to be. For us, you know, if particularly 10 years ago, you're using our search function on our app, it was not friendly compared to what you experienced in Amazon. And so each of us trying to figure out how do we get to that end goal. And then you layer onto that now what's happening with membership. So you got Amazon Prime, we have Walmart Plus members now. Target just announced that they're going to have their own membership program, and bundling what people want or expect to come with those memberships, and is there value in whatever that is. So an example would be, we used to own a company called Vudu, which was a video platform like Netflix. And you know, we tried it for a long time, and at a certain point we decided it doesn't work. And so we sold it off. And so I think constantly looking at what do those packages look like to give the consumer what they're looking for. And at the end of the day, all of us, for the most part, have gotten to a point, we don't expect just to pay $1 to get something. We're paying and we're expecting this multitude of benefits. And so understanding what benefits you can put in, I think that's the continued race. Getting the people that can support what you're trying to do is a critical piece, whether that's for GIS or AI technology, warehousing technology, like having the right people that can move you to that right space, I think is really critical. And we feel like we're well positioned. And then willing to take risks and gamble. So for example, we were just a major sponsor of the CES conference in Las Vegas last month. One of the things we announced, we've got some new technology we're rolling out in Sam's Club. And it comes after a couple of years of other technology where you could scan the merchandise yourself, put it in your cart. You don't have to go through the registers. It's called Scan and Go. You go to the front, they scan a QR code, scan 3 items in your cart, you can leave. Well, the new technology, it'll look like a frame of a doorway. You put all the items in your cart. Because you're a member of Sam's Club, we have all of your information. You've agreed to it. We have your credit card information. You walk out the door, you paid for it. You don't have to go to a register. You don't have to deal with anybody. It's done. And for consumers and for people in general, the biggest thing is time. We all have the same amount of time. And so figuring out who is trusted and who can give you or respect your time the most, I think are two of the most critical pieces that you're going to see people continuing to fight for, not only in retail, but in general.
So Aaron,
Through sustainable business, are we
Yes.
switching gears? We're going to sustainability?
I have a question about densities and transit because I thought it was interesting to hear about some of the downsides that come with Walmart stores opening within close proximity to densities and transit. But what are some of the opportunities that Walmart is utilizing to get more customers with locations with proximity to those?
Yeah, it's a good question. We've got some urban markets where we've tested stores from a density close to transit. There's some other dynamics within those cities that we don't have control of. We can control our parking lot and when people are in our space. And so I don't think it's as simple as just, is it mass transit? You know, how does that work? How does it not work? It looks different in Redlands, right? We've got mass transit right here next to the campus. But you got to go a little way and the train track goes right by the back of the Redlands Walmart store, but there's no stop over there. You know, and so you also got to figure out, what are people okay with? What are they using that transit for? So if they're okay with multiple stops, then you can figure out how to make that work, like bus stops, right? There is a there's an element in the population that relies on bus stops, and they like them being near Walmart stores. And it's very common to see a bus stop near a Walmart store from a mass transit perspective. But if you're talking about a train station, not so much the case. You also have to look at where you're at. So we don't have a lot of stores that are in urban centers. We're in suburbs, we're in rural areas. We're near 90% of the population in the US, even though we're not in a bunch of the urban centers. So I guess to answer your question, we have looked at it, we've tested it. There's a number of things some that are in our control, a lot that are out of our control. And I think it's a challenge that urban planners are going to have to continue to look at to figure out, not only for Walmart or retailers, but just in general.
Thank you.
Yep. Over here.
Aaron, I have an online question, if I may.
Absolutely.
This is coming all the way for you from New York City, New York, from Dr. Namchul Shin, who is a professor of information systems at Pace University. It's a four-part question.
Four-part question.
Four-part question coming your way. I'm going to ask it one part at a time.
Thank you.
You spoke about the importance of the Asian population for locating Walmart stores. Tell us a little bit more about why that dominance of the Asian population compared to other race and ethnic groups when it comes to site selection decisions.
Well, I used it as an example to show you we're looking at all cuts of the demographics, but as a retailer, you have to look for growth. And when that segment of the population is growing the fastest and projected to grow for the period of time it is, there's also a secondary tie-in for us. And that is that in our international markets, we have certain areas that are very important to us. India, for example, we've said a huge growth market for us. China, huge growth market for us. So it is not uncommon for families in the United States, regardless of their ethnicity, to send money back home to their families and wherever their main families are from. And so in this situation, you get a double win. Like, we're growing in those markets, or they can talk to their family. Oh no, Walmart, they're good. Like, these are the things they provide. This is how we save money. They also have a different nuance that they're looking for in products. And so that's important as we look at our merchandise mix and understanding. So I mentioned Lunar New Year. Like, we have stores and population bases that justify us doing huge Lunar New Year events. If I did a Lunar New Year event in Redlands, it wouldn't be a big draw. Now, that's not to say that there's not population here that cares about Lunar New Year, but we have to look at it and say, where does it make the most sense? So I just try to use the Asian population, one, as an example, and two, because we're in Southern California, and that was from Southern California, I thought it was a good tie-in that folks could see and understand.
Talk to us a little bit more about, you were talking about this Walmart, Amazon, physical stores versus digital. As with the pandemic, consumer preferences have shifted in terms of visiting stores versus buying online. The question from Namchul is, why are physical stores still important? Can you shed some light on that?
It depends on who the physical store is. So I'm going to speak to Walmart. If you're in rural America, Walmart may be the biggest thing in your town or in your area. It is a place of community. Now, you may not feel like that in Redlands or in certain parts of Southern California, if that's not what your Walmart experience has been. But in many, many parts, and where we grew as a company was in towns that were less than 10,000 people. And so we are a community center, a convening place. An example I'll give you is after September 11th, people were very uneasy. we put news on our electronics TVs, live news stations playing. People were looking for a place of community, and we found them all over the country coming to our stores. They weren't shopping. They were just coming to feel safe, to see people that they knew from their community, and to be able to connect. And I think one of the things that we've seen, pandemic hits, that connection stopped, right? Everybody was stuck at home. Then you're ordering online when you could, and you start getting products, or you're going in and getting out as quick as you can. That connection is a desire that we've seen, especially over the last probably 2 years, of people wanting to reconnect. I'll use myself personally. My office is in my home when I'm not traveling for work. I intentionally go to Sam's Club in San Bernardino to get out, to walk the store. I may not buy stuff. I'm just being a looky-loo, but it's my opportunity to get out. I'm around other people. I don't necessarily have to talk or interact with them. Sometimes I do run into people I know, but I think it's the sense of community for one. And two, the reality is we're all different. And while some people may want to get your stuff at home, some of you love to go to the store. Some of you love to shop. My wife is one of you. And because of that, they're going to go to stores.
I'll let the questions go back to the room and then come back to other.
Great.
Anika.
Hi, this is Anika. And thank you for your wonderful presentation. So I have one question. Like, I'm very interested in garment industry. So you mentioned about Asian people. So what were the key characteristics that GIS helped you to identify the targeted market for the clothing industry? Like, we are Asian people and US people comparing, we do our clothing very differently. So how do you like estimate the demographic?
Yeah, it's a great point. So our buyers, our buyers assistants, the merchants for the company, they are always looking not only at weather, which is the number one factor in how we're getting products into our stores, whether you need cold weather, warm weather, or somewhere in between, but then also looking at the demographics within each state. So if we're in a farming community in Iowa, our products that we're carrying in that store look very different than if you're in Orange County looking at stores in Southern California, or if you're in San Francisco or in the Bay Area looking at the products we're carrying there. Our challenge is finding the right apparel suppliers that can provide us the goods that are going to be relevant for that particular market. I think our merchants are great. They're always trying to improve. And I think that the point you're getting to is probably one of the most difficult, because particularly in California, when you look at store densities and population densities, one of the most populated states in the country, you can go one county to the next and it looks very different as far as what your product mix should be, what the demographics look like, what the income levels are. You can be in the same county. Like if you're in Santa Ana, Orange County, and if you're in Irvine, Orange County, and we have stores in both, those demographics are very different. It's a Latino customer in Santa Ana. It's an Asian customer in Irvine. And literally you can drive across the street to be from one city to the next. So it's a tough challenge for our merchants. One they're constantly trying to figure out. So when you're done, you want to come work for us. We're looking for smart people to help us solve those things.
Thank you so much. My name is Evan. When the company's looking at opening stores within this year and then, a couple of years down, 5 years down, is the company taking into effect, spikes in retail theft? Are you looking at cities where, that are, seeing spikes in crime and, taking stuff from your stores? Is that a big threat to you guys opening new stores?
So asset protection is a part of our operations. So we have them at every store. They're part of every evaluation, and it could be things as simple as, do we need locking shopping carts at this location? How many cameras do we need at this location? What's our partnership look like with the police departments? How many associates do we need to have that work in those particular spaces? But we use it in other ways. Actually, I may have it here. I threw some appendices in here. Yeah. So this is an example of, from an asset protection perspective, there was a tour across the United States, a protest. And it was going from Kingman, Arizona to DC. We got a lot of stores between Kingman, Arizona and DC. So our asset protection looked at GIS technology, and we were monitoring where this was moving to determine where we had risk of maybe having a problem if a protest got out of hand in one of our stores or in a parking lot because they stopped to get goods there, or they needed a break, or they were using the gas station or parking lot, whatever it may be. So the short answer to your question is, yeah, we're always going to look at those things. I've been with the company 30 years. When I started in 1993, we had asset protection. We called them loss prevention back then, but it's just been part of the company. I think it's part of retail in general. I realize there's different inflection points that people may emphasize. Is this worse? Is it bad? But I think as long as there's been retail, there's been a need to look and see, what are the challenges that you have that, in our case, asset protection could help us manage.
Thank you. And then just one more quick thing. Are you opening stores quicker than you're thinking of closing stores, or closing stores at all?
We evaluate stores for closure based on, the business models. We're opening more than what we're closing. But as a retailer, I mean, we've got a responsibility to look at operations. I would tell you that we don't open and close stores. And what I mean by that is, if we open a store, we've done a lot of analysis on the front side, like what I took you through. When we make the decision to open, if it's not working, we are trying to figure out how to make it work. So if we get to a point where we make the decision to close a store, that is not a light decision. We're impacting our associates in the store, the consumers in that particular market. We're looking at what other assets do we have around that we can transfer associates to, or that we can serve customers at. So that's not a light decision for us, and we don't do it very often. But when we do, there's a lot of analysis that goes into it.
Thank you.
I'm going to circle back to one question from Nam Chul. This is a question that, as a faculty member, I can relate to, and perhaps my faculty colleagues can as well, and all of the students in the room. Can you speak about Walmart's internship programs, and what is that like, and possibly summer internship opportunities?
So we do have an internship program. I'm not an expert in the space, but happy to get more details and be able to follow up and share it with you. Our internships are Bentonville based in Arkansas. So if you're looking for a summer in a different environment, it's a great place to work and to figure out, hey, do I like this? And it's shocking how many people have maybe a negative or neutral position, and then after they go, they're like, this place is great. So our internships, I think, are about 2 months from a time perspective. And it's a very small cohort. I want to say it's like 100 to 120 folks, and they're highly ingrained. It's not about getting coffee. It's about getting into the business based on what your internship is, working with, whether it's merchants, asset protection, operations, and trying to see and understand. But happy to get more information and be able to try to share that.
Thank you.